All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco 49er video. Check out Pig and a Pickle. Two locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California. Go get the brisket chili. It's all good, but the brisket chili are amazing. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. All right, Matt Mayoko reporting the 49ers are progressing in their defensive coordinator hire job, which is Kyle Shanahan's job to go out there and find a defensive coordinator to replace Steve Wilkes, who was fired after the Super Bowl. Nick Sorensen, who's a 49er assistant, has been interviewed. Brandon Staley has been interviewed. And Daniel Bullocks will be interviewed later this week. And then, according to the report by Mayoko, two candidates outside the organization will be interviewed as well for the position. Of course, according to league rules, the 49ers have to interview two minority candidates to satisfy the Rooney Rule and the rules that the league has set in place as far as minority hiring practices. So they will have to interview two minority candidates. Daniel Bullocks, of course, will be one of those minority candidates. So they still need one other minority candidate to be interviewed. But this is the first information we've had at all on the candidates for the defensive coordinator position. Now, Wilkes was fired. The Niners were a top 10 defense this year as far as yards per game allowed. And I think they were 8th overall, and they were top 5, I think 3rd overall in points per game allowed this year. But yet Steve Wilkes was let go after only one season with the 49ers. Why? Because the belief is that the 49ers front and the 49ers coverage often did not match up, and Steve was calling both. So that is a cardinal sin. It really should never happen. If it happens once or twice a year, that's bad. It happened at least two or three times during the regular season and a couple more times in the playoffs. So I think that sealed the fate of Wilkes. Shanahan went from outside the organization to bring in Wilkes. And interestingly enough, when they went from Sala to D'Amico, they didn't spend hardly any time in making that announcement. That was just a very quick announcement. This one has taken more time. There's been a lot of speculation as far as big names like Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, Gus Bradley. There's a lot of people that feel that Chris Kiffin, who was a one-time coordinator at the collegiate level, may get a look for this job. There's a lot of people that think that Jeff Ulbrich, who is the defensive coordinator of the New York Jets, that he may get this job. The only way Ulbrich would be able to be the 49ers defensive coordinator if they also gave him the title of assistant head coach, because lateral moves are not allowed in the National Football League. So that's where we sit right now. According to Matt Mayoko, the Niners have already interviewed Brandon Staley. Staley, of course, was fired as the head coach of the Chargers after his Chargers defense allowed the Raiders to score 60-plus points on them in a game late in the year. So Staley is out as the head coach of the Chargers, and he was interviewed for the position. He was the defensive coordinator of the Rams when the Rams went to the Super Bowl, and is a highly thought of defensive coordinator, but didn't have any success really as a head coach. As far as Sorensen, Sorensen has never been a coordinator before. He has not been on the Niners staff for very long, but he's highly thought of. Bullocks has been with Kyle Shanahan since 2017 and has worked up from quality control to defensive backfield coach, but he himself also has never been a coordinator before. So Sorensen has not been a coordinator. Bullocks has not been a coordinator. Staley has been a coordinator. And those are the three names that we know so far are being or have been interviewed, or in Bullock's case, will be interviewed for the defensive coordinator position. As far as who else, two other candidates outside the organization, who are those candidates? We don't know. What's their level of expertise? Have they ever been head coaches? Have they ever been defensive coordinators? Have they ever been position coaches? It would seem to me that the 49ers would not go to hire a defensive coordinator replacement without having the guy who steps in for Wilks be have defensive coordinator experience. It seems really odd that you would get rid of somebody like Wilks, who did a good job for you statistically. I mean, yes, you had a top defense before Wilks, but you lost a lot of players, and you were still top 10 in yards and top 5 in points per game allowed, and, kept Patrick Mahomes and the great Andy Reid somewhat in check in Super Bowl 58. To replace that guy with somebody who's never been a coordinator before seems like something the 49ers would not do. So does that mean that Brandon Staley is the leader in the clubhouse? It's hard to say. But if it comes right down to Sorensen, Bullocks, or Staley, I think I would probably bet on Staley just for that reason alone, just for the fact that he has been a coordinator before at the NFL level. And it seems to me to be somewhat of a significant risk to bring in a replacement for Steve Wilks, who's never done the job before. That seems like it would be risky. Would the players endorse this? I don't know. Would the players be in favor of replacing Wilks with somebody who has never been a coordinator before? That's hard to envision at this point. I would think that, Shanahan's going to want to get whoever he wants to get. More than anything, he doesn't want to be involved. I got to think that Shanahan does not want to be involved. When I say he wants to be involved very much in the decision-making process, but I don't think he wants to dabble on the defensive side of the ball. And if you get a first-time coordinator, what are the odds that you're going to be able to just hand him the keys to the kingdom and just say, hey, you're the czar of everything defense? Something tells me that you're going to be looking over your shoulder at any candidate who doesn't have defensive coordinator experience. So that means Sorensen and Bullocks are probably not going to get the job. The fact that Staley interviewed, that's interesting because he has been a successful defensive coordinator before. And then who are these two candidates going to be, from the outside? So I think there's a lot of questions at this point, but Mayoko reporting that Sorensen, Bullocks, and Staley will, two of them, Staley and Sorensen, have been interviewed. Bullocks will be interviewed, and the Niners plan to interview two candidates outside of their own organization as possible new defensive coordinators replacing the since fired Steve Wilks. All right, that is the report. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.